remember a time, not too long ago, when I spent hours every week trying to please people who never had the decency to reciprocate. I bent over backward, always available, always giving, and always hoping for something in return. But what did I get? Stress. Exhaustion. The realization that I was stuck in fake relationships. And I wasn't alone. Many of us fall into the trap of these toxic, draining connections. Relationships that look good on the surface, but lack depth. So let me ask you, how often do you feel drained after spending time with someone who never really shows up for you? What if I told you there's a way to identify those relationships before they suck the life out of you? There's a way to step away from those fake connections and start investing in people who truly deserve your time and energy. In today's world, we all need a filter to separate the genuine from the fake, the meaningful from the empty. We can all learn how to live more intentionally, protect our time, and reclaim our energy if we're ready to take control of our relationships, stop wasting time on those who don't truly care, and stick around. Before we dive in, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to Stoic Narratives Official for more life-changing insights. Let's take this journey together. Number 1. Why I do this. Life is too short to waste on insincere relationships. I didn't fully realize this until a few years ago. There was a time when I dedicated so much of myself to people who only reached out when they wanted something. They never asked about my life or well-being. It was always about their needs, and I found myself constantly giving. One day, I noticed a man I used to consider a friend only called when he needed advice or favors. But when I faced a tough situation, I couldn't even get a response. That moment made me realize the truth. Some relationships are built on mutual respect, while others are simply one-sided. I had to ask myself, why was I wasting my time on people who didn't add value to my life? Why was I pouring energy into relationships that were never going to be fulfilling? When I made the decision to distance myself from these fake connections, something shifted. I felt a sense of relief and a renewed focus on what mattered. I found myself investing more in authentic relationships, and the difference was night and day. It wasn't just about cutting people off. It was about understanding that my time and energy are too valuable to spend on connections that drain me. I started focusing on the people who made an effort to be present, who supported me, and who genuinely cared. As I reflected on this, I began to understand the value of investing in meaningful relationships. It's not about the quantity of people in your life, it's about the quality. You see, focusing on authentic relationships gave me a sense of purpose. It allowed me to develop stronger bonds with the few who truly matter, rather than spreading myself thin trying to please everyone. The lesson was clear. You have to be intentional about who you spend your time with, and you must recognize when a relationship is doing more harm than good. The truth is that focusing on genuine connections transformed my life. It helped me rediscover my sense of self-worth. I realized that by saying no to those who drained me, I was saying yes to more of what truly brought me joy. And now, I can look back and know that the time I spent investing in authentic relationships made all the difference. So I want to ask you, how much time do you spend in relationships that don't lift you up? Are there people in your life who only take without giving anything back? Recognizing this is the first step in freeing yourself from the burden of fake relationships and refocusing on what truly matters. When you make room for the right people, you'll be amazed at how much more fulfilling life can be. Number 2. The cost of always being available. Being always available to others may seem like a noble thing at first. After all, helping those in need, offering advice, or being present for someone is seen as a sign of kindness. But have you ever stopped to consider the true cost of constantly making yourself available? It's easy to fall into the trap of thinking that saying yes to every request will make you a good person. But what happens when you're stretched too thin? What happens when you're always there for others but never have time for yourself? I remember a woman who, despite having a full schedule, always answered her phone, always responded to every text, and always showed up when friends needed her. She was the go-to person for advice, support, and a helping hand. It wasn't long before she started feeling burnt out. Her energy was depleted, her thoughts scattered, and her health began to decline. One evening, as she sat quietly in her living room, she realized she hadn't taken a moment for herself in months. The people she had helped, the ones she had always been there for, didn't seem to notice how much she had given. Instead, they continued to ask for more. The truth is, constantly being available doesn't just take a toll on your energy. It affects your ability to think clearly, focus on your own needs, and even enjoy life. This is where the Stoic principle comes into play. Stoicism teaches us the importance of boundaries and self-care. By always being available, we let others define our time. But time, once lost, can never be regained. Can we afford to give away the most precious resource we have without considering the consequences? It's easy to convince ourselves that by helping everyone else, we're being selfless, but there's a difference between being helpful and being taken for granted. A man once told me that he felt guilty whenever he couldn't drop everything for others. He believed that saying no would make him a bad friend, a bad colleague, a bad person. The reality, though, was that he was doing more harm than good. His constant availability meant that others never learned to handle their problems, and, perhaps most damaging, he neglected his own mental and physical health. It wasn't until he started saying no that he realized how much better he felt, how much more he could help, and how much healthier his relationships became. Think about it. How often do you find yourself saying yes to others out of guilt or obligation? And what do you lose in the process? Are you sacrificing your well-being, your peace of mind, just to be there for someone who might not even appreciate it? The truth is, if you're always available, you're not allowing room for the things that truly matter, like your own personal growth, your rest, and your happiness. Here's a simple reality. When you're constantly available, you are teaching others that your time doesn't have value. People begin to take it for granted, expecting you to drop everything at a moment's notice. Over time, you might feel resentment building. You may even find yourself questioning if these relationships are truly reciprocal. What kind of energy are you inviting into your life when you're constantly there for others, but never for yourself? In the end, the cost of always being available is much higher than most of us realize. It's not just about the time you lose, it's about the emotional and mental drain that comes with it. By learning to set boundaries and prioritize your well-being, you begin to understand the true value of your time. You'll be in a better position to offer help and support when it's truly needed, and most importantly, you'll be nurturing the most important relationship you have, the one with yourself. So ask yourself, what would happen if you said no just a little more often? How much more fulfilled would your life be if you started valuing your time, your energy, and your peace of mind? The Stoic wisdom here is clear. Saying no isn't selfish, it's essential for living a balanced, meaningful life. Would you be willing to take that first step? Number 3, quality over quantity, redefining friendship. In a world that values social connections and online networks, it's easy to get caught up in the idea that the more friends we have, the better our lives must be. But have you ever stopped to consider whether the quantity of friendships matters? The truth is, it's not the number of people we know, but the depth of the relationships that truly make a difference. When we shift our focus from quantity to quality, we can build more meaningful, fulfilling connections. A woman I know spent years juggling a large circle of friends, attending every social event, and always staying connected through texts and calls. But despite her busy social calendar, she often felt lonely and disconnected. She realized that while she had many acquaintances, few of them truly knew her. There was always a surface-level interaction, but never a deep conversation or mutual understanding. As she redefined what friendship meant to her, she started to prioritize fewer people, but those who truly cared about her, who were there through thick and thin. Her life became richer, more meaningful, and less stressful. Think about it. How many of your friendships are meaningful? Do they support you when things get tough, or do they just fill up your schedule? It's easy to surround yourself with people, but what's the point if these relationships lack depth? Stoic philosophy teaches us that true value isn't found in the number of friends we have, but in the quality of those friendships. It's not about being popular. It's about being surrounded by people who genuinely understand you, challenge you to grow, and support your well-being. Consider the relationships in which you invest your time and energy. Do they nurture you or drain you? A man I know used to spend his weekends surrounded by a large group of friends, attending parties and social gatherings. But when he needed help, no one was there. As he started to spend more time with a small group of people who valued quality over quantity, he noticed a shift. These friends not only supported him during tough times, but also celebrated his successes. This is the power of cultivating deeper connections, relationships that are built on trust and mutual respect. It's easy to get distracted by the number of likes or followers we have, especially in a time when social media can amplify the illusion of connection. But how many of these people would you call if you needed someone in the middle of the night? Are they the ones you'd turn to in your darkest moments? Stoicism teaches us to seek true companionship, not just fleeting interactions. It's about quality over quantity. The friends who matter are the ones who are there when it counts, not just when it's convenient. Reflecting on the quality of your friendships can be eye-opening. Have you ever found yourself in a large group, but still felt alone? The truth is, we're all wired to crave genuine connection. Quantity might fill our social calendars, but it's the quality that fills our hearts. So, how can you start prioritizing the relationships that truly matter? The Stoic wisdom here is simple but powerful. Seek the depth in your relationships, not the breadth. Do you find yourself overextending, trying to maintain friendships that aren't adding value to your life? What would happen if you let go of those superficial connections and focused on building stronger, more meaningful ones? Would your life become less chaotic and more fulfilling? The answer is likely yes. And it starts by embracing the idea that a few deep, genuine friendships are worth far more than 100 shallow ones. As you move forward, ask yourself, who are the people in your life who know you and stand by you? How can you invest more time and energy into nurturing those relationships? By shifting your focus from the number of people you know to the depth of your connections, you can begin to experience the true richness of friendship. Number 4. Recognizing manipulative and self-centered behavior. Recognizing manipulative and self-centered behavior can be challenging, especially when it comes from someone you trust. In relationships, whether personal or professional, manipulation is a tactic often used to gain control or extract something without regard for the other person's feelings or needs. What makes it even harder to spot is that these behaviors can be subtle, like a slow drip that eventually fills the bucket. But once you recognize the signs, you can make better decisions about who truly deserves your time and energy. A woman I know found herself constantly exhausted by a close friend who always seemed to need something, whether it was emotional support or favors. At first, it wasn't obvious. Her friend would ask for small favors, then slowly, those requests became more frequent and demanding. It seemed like a simple friendship until one day, when the woman was going through a tough time herself and needed support, her friend suddenly became distant. No calls, no texts. It was like she disappeared. The manipulation had become clear. This friend wasn't interested in mutual support, but in taking without giving. It's easy to feel like you've been wronged in these situations, but recognizing manipulative and self-centered behavior is the first step in protecting yourself. We often excuse these behaviors, thinking it's just a phase or that the person's intentions aren't bad. But how many times do we overlook red flags, only to regret it later? Stoicism teaches us to be aware of such behaviors, so we can choose wisely the people we allow into our lives. In this case, the woman would have been better served by setting boundaries much sooner, understanding that manipulation thrives where those boundaries are weak or non-existent. Have you ever felt like you were always giving, yet receiving nothing in return? It's not uncommon for manipulative people to subtly position themselves as the victim, ensuring they always get attention or support. This tactic feeds their need for control while leaving you drained and unfulfilled. A man I know had a colleague who was particularly skilled at playing the victim. No matter the situation, it seemed like this colleague always had some personal drama or crisis that needed attention. The man would listen patiently, offering help when he could. But after a while, he began to notice a pattern. Whenever he faced difficulties, this colleague was never around to listen. Instead, they would redirect the conversation back to their own needs. It was clear that this was self-centered behavior disguised as concern. The key to recognizing manipulation is awareness. People who engage in manipulative behaviors often disguise their true intentions behind a facade of kindness or vulnerability. They might appear sweet, even charming, but if their actions consistently prioritize their own needs while disregarding yours, it's time to take a step back and reassess. So, when you find yourself constantly supporting someone but never receiving the same level of support, what do? Should you continue pouring your energy into a one-sided relationship? Or should you recognize that true friendship, as taught by the Stoics, requires balance, respect, and reciprocity? Another sign of manipulative behavior is inconsistency. One minute, someone might be sweet and considerate, and the next, they could become distant or even cold. This unpredictability creates an emotional roller coaster, making it hard to understand where you stand in the relationship. A woman shared with me how a close friend would frequently cancel plans at the last minute, making excuses that always seemed reasonable. But after a while, the cancellations became more frequent. This inconsistency made her question whether the friendship was genuine or if it was simply a case of one person using the other for their benefit. This is a classic sign of self-centered behavior, where the manipulator's convenience takes precedence over the needs or feelings of the other person. Reflecting on these behaviors, you may ask yourself, what do I gain from this relationship? Am I being respected and valued for who I truly am? Or am I just a tool to be used when needed? Stoic wisdom tells us that we should seek relationships based on mutual respect and trust. If those values aren't present, then the relationship becomes less about connection and more about personal gain. Manipulation can also take the form of guilt tripping. Manipulative individuals often make you feel responsible for their happiness or well-being, creating an unhealthy dynamic where you feel obligated to help them, sometimes at the cost of your well-being. A man I know was in a relationship with someone who would frequently say things like, "If you cared, you would do this for me." Over time, this subtle manipulation began to eat away at his sense of self. He realized he was being pressured into actions that weren't in his best interest, and at the expense of his emotional health. The lesson here is that guilt should never be used as a tool to control others. Relationships should be built on mutual understanding, not on coercion or manipulation. As you think about the manipulative or self-centered people in your life, take a moment to ask yourself, are you truly getting the support and respect you deserve? Or are you simply being used for someone else's benefit? Stoicism encourages us to be aware of these signs, so we can free ourselves from draining relationships and instead invest in those that are genuine and supportive. Recognizing manipulative behavior isn't about pointing fingers or blaming others. It's about taking responsibility for your well-being. When you identify these behaviors, you can choose to protect your peace by setting boundaries, distancing yourself, or even walking away. It's not an easy decision, but it's a necessary one for maintaining your emotional health and fostering relationships that are grounded in trust and respect. The Stoic approach to relationships is simple yet powerful. Be mindful of who you let into your life and choose relationships that build you up, not tear you down. Wouldn't you rather surround yourself with people who lift you instead of those who weigh you down? Number 5. Trust. Harder to give, more meaningful than ever. Trust is one of the most delicate yet powerful elements of any relationship. While it's easy to say we trust someone, the act of giving that trust, especially when we've been hurt in the past, can be one of the hardest things to do. When trust is broken, it feels like a piece of our foundation crumbles. But when we give trust, especially to those who prove they deserve it, it can be one of the most meaningful experiences of all. A man I know went through a particularly tough time with his closest friend. They had been inseparable for years, sharing everything from personal struggles to victories. However, a small misunderstanding between them turned into something much bigger. Over time, what was once a relationship built on trust became one riddled with doubt and second-guessing. The friendship was never the same again. The hurt from the betrayal weighed on him for months, And it wasn't until he decided to forgive and rebuild trust that he truly understood its value. What makes trust so difficult to rebuild, especially after it has been broken? It's not just the fear of being hurt again. It's the realization that once trust is compromised, the foundation of the relationship is shaken, and it takes time to rebuild. This rebuilding process is often slow and requires consistent effort. Why is that? It's because trust isn't just about the absence of betrayal. It's about demonstrating reliability, honesty, and integrity over time. When someone asks for your trust, it's not just a request, it's an offer of vulnerability. You're allowing yourself to be open, to be human, and to believe that the other person will hold that trust sacred. But when that trust is violated, it can leave a mark. Can we truly say we trust someone again if they've shown us they're not reliable? Or is trust something that, once broken, is forever changed, even if it's repaired? A woman I know struggled with a similar issue in her romantic relationship. She had been let down by her partner multiple times, each time leading to more disappointment. However, she came to realize that true trust isn't about a perfect record, it's about consistency. Even when the relationship hit a rough patch and the temptation to give up trust was strong, she learned that rebuilding it required understanding the root of the issues and making deliberate efforts to change. It wasn't easy, but over time, they were able to find a new balance and rebuild trust, proving that it's not about perfection, but about commitment. One might wonder, is trust always so fragile? Shouldn't we trust easily and without hesitation, especially if we care for someone? Well, here's the thing. Trust isn't about being naive or giving it away freely. Trust is something that's earned, and the more you've had to fight for it, the more meaningful it becomes. It's easy to trust when things are going smoothly, but the true test comes when things get tough. How do you behave when the person you trust is struggling, or when they make a mistake? Do you cling to your trust, or do you let doubt creep in? Consider how we naturally feel about people who have proven to be reliable. When a man has always kept his word and been there when it counts, we instinctively trust him. But when we've been let down, we become more guarded. The problem is that this guard doesn't just protect us from future disappointment, it also prevents us from experiencing the deep, meaningful connections that trust brings. Stoicism teaches us to accept that trust is difficult, but also one of the most powerful tools we have for building strong, lasting relationships. We must be intentional about who we trust, and we must also be diligent in proving ourselves worthy of that trust. So why is trust so meaningful once it's earned? It's because trust allows us to be vulnerable. In a world where we are constantly on guard, trust becomes the rare gift that allows two people to connect on a deeper level. It makes us feel safe, understood, and supported. Without trust, relationships become transactional, based on what we can get from one another, rather than what we can give. Trust, when it's earned, shifts that dynamic. It turns a friendship or partnership into something real and lasting. Think about the people in your life you truly trust. They've probably been there for you in ways that no one else has. Maybe they've shown you kindness when you needed it most, or they've kept their promises even when it wasn't easy. This kind of trust doesn't come quickly. It's earned through actions, not words. Have you ever thought about the trust you place in others? Are you willing to invest time and energy in cultivating and rebuilding trust, especially when things go wrong? Or do you tend to withdraw and close off, protecting yourself from further hurt? The Stoic wisdom on trust reminds us that it's not a one-time gift, but a continuous exchange. We must be diligent in nurturing and maintaining trust in our relationships, ensuring that we are as reliable as those we choose to trust. And when trust is tested, we must be honest with ourselves and others about what went wrong, allowing for growth and renewal. As difficult as it may be to trust again after betrayal, the process of doing so can be a profound opportunity for both personal and relational growth. So, next time someone asks for your trust, consider whether they've demonstrated the consistency and integrity to earn it. And when trust is broken, don't rush to close off your heart. Instead, ask yourself if the relationship is worth rebuilding. And if so, be prepared to put in the work. Trust may be harder to give, but once it's earned, it becomes one of the most meaningful parts of a relationship. Wouldn't you rather invest your energy in relationships that are built on trust rather than those that leave you questioning everything? Number 6. Why I share this experience. As I sit here, having lived more than 6 decades, I often find myself reflecting on what truly matters in life. There are many things I've learned along the way, but there's one piece of wisdom that stands out. Often, the most valuable lessons come from the experiences we share with others. It's not always easy to open up, to show vulnerability. But if we don't share, how can we learn from each other? I remember a man I knew many years ago. He was a quiet soul, the kind of person who kept to himself. His life was filled with small but meaningful acts of kindness, things no one ever really noticed. Yet despite this, there was a time when I could see he was carrying a heavy burden. One day, he finally spoke up. He shared how he'd been struggling to trust others, especially after a betrayal that had left him wounded. As he spoke, I realized something. The only way we heal is by letting others into our story. Not to make them feel sorry for us, but to show that we're all human, all imperfect, and that we can find strength in each other. This is why I share this experience with you. It's not for sympathy, nor for praise, but to highlight the importance of connection. Why do we keep our struggles to ourselves? Why do we shy away from the lessons that come with sharing our journeys? It's easy to think we're the only ones who've been hurt, the only ones who feel lost, but the truth is, everyone is carrying something. When we open up, we invite others to do the same, and in doing so, we foster growth and healing. As we grow older, we often find ourselves carrying the weight of experiences that younger people might not fully understand. But doesn't that just make our shared wisdom more valuable? Isn't there something profound in knowing that we've lived through struggles, that we've fought to regain trust after it was lost, and come out stronger on the other side? I've learned that life isn't about avoiding pain. It's about learning from it. It's not about keeping all the answers to ourselves, but rather sharing what we've learned with others. Each time we share, we not only heal ourselves, but also offer others a chance to do the same. Why keep that to yourself when you can help someone else carry the load? So when you face challenges in life, remember this. It's not just about overcoming them alone. Sometimes it's about sharing the experience. Ask yourself, who could benefit from hearing your story? Who might find healing in the lessons you've learned just by simply listening to you? Life's most valuable lessons aren't found in isolation. They're found in connection and shared stories and in the bonds we build when we choose to trust again. As we've explored today, the journey of building meaningful relationships is not always an easy one. We've looked at how superficial connections, manipulative behavior, and lack of trust can impact the bonds we form with others. But we've also discovered the power of recognizing true, genuine relationships and the importance of trust and vulnerability. These are the foundations that allow us to grow together, learn from each other, and heal from past wounds. Remember, the key to cultivating stronger, more authentic connections lies in consistent practice. It's not enough to simply recognize these traits in others. You need to apply these lessons in your daily interactions. Whether it's listening more deeply, setting healthy boundaries, or trusting a little more, every small step adds up to creating deeper and more fulfilling relationships. So ask yourself, how can I be more mindful of these qualities in my own relationships? How can I encourage those around me to build trust and openness? Your personal journey is yours to shape, and every effort you make counts. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Share your reflections or any experiences you've had in the comments. Let's create a space where we can all learn and grow together. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to like and subscribe to the Stoic Narratives official channel for more insights into building a meaningful life. Thanks for watching, and take care.